I'm Todd Myers, Vice President for Research at the Washington Policy Center, and the session is finally over. The budgets have been passed, and so I want to do a quick legislative wrap-up and look at what's changed now that we have a new governor for the first time in 12 years. And really the answer is, in the words of Roger Daltrey of The Who, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. In three areas, Governor Ferguson promised that he would change something, and in all three of those areas, he fell short. First, he promised that he would change the emergency power laws. We saw during COVID how Governor Inslee abused those emergency power laws. Governor Ferguson said he was going to change that, and there was a bill to do that. It failed, so we didn't pass that. Second, he said he was going to limit the use of emergency clauses. Emergency clauses are a clause that are ended to the bottom of a bill to make a law take effect either immediately or at a specific time, but also to prevent the voters from putting a referendum on a particular bill. He said he was going to eliminate that abuse. And the third thing he said repeatedly at the beginning of the session is that he was going to crack down on the budget, on needless spending. That did not happen. One of the things that we heard is that the taxes that were passed only hit the wealthy. That's wrong. These are the largest tax increases in Washington state history, and it's not even close. They are more than double the previous record in terms of tax increases. And the taxes include increases in property taxes, which hit everyone, increases in gas taxes, which hit everyone, fees like for the Discover Pass. So if you want to go to a state park, you have to pay a higher fee. These taxes are going to hit everyone, and they're going to hit the very innovators and businesses who have made Washington's economy so strong up to this point. So he failed there. The budget also increases by a huge amount. As we've pointed out in the report card for Washington's future, Washington's budget over the last 12 years has increased by 51% above inflation and population. The fact that we need even more spending on top of that is completely wrong. And so it would have been a good time to crack down, to limit spending, to find ways to cut. But when the governor actually came to vetoing particular budget projects, the total amount that he vetoed is just about $25 million out of a $77 billion budget. That is 0.03% of the total budget that he vetoed. The notion that everything else is necessary, totally wrong. There are individual line items that he could have vetoed that would have saved that amount of money. For instance, we send about that amount of money just to cities and local jurisdictions for local climate planning. There's far more than that is spent on installing EV chargers across the state that are completely wasteful and unnecessary. There's so many things we could have done in this budget to restrain spending. Now, it's not all bad news. One of the things that we've pointed out in the past was the wasteful $45 million EV subsidy that Governor Inslee had to help people buy electric vehicles last year. Governor Inslee in his budget wanted that to go to $62 million. In fact, it got zeroed out because we highlighted that it was wasteful, that it mostly went to wealthy people, that it didn't help reduce CO2. Some of the other things that the governor did veto, Governor Ferguson did veto, fortunately, are, and I'm not making this up, about $200,000 to teach refugees how to ice skate. Those are the sorts of things that are in the budget. Fortunately, that got vetoed. So too did about $2 million to study offshore floating wind turbines. We pointed out that about $500,000 of that went to one of Governor Inslee's old advisors. That sort of cronyism is the source of a lot of waste in the state budget. Fortunately, that also got vetoed. But again, so much more could have been done, and Washington's budget and taxes are going to go up quite a bit, and we're going to see the results of that. And it's not just paid by the wealthy, it is paid by everybody. The other thing is that the governor said that he was going to try to rein in emergency clauses. And in fact, he did veto a couple of emergency clauses. But the bills where he vetoed those clauses are basically meaningless. They weren't controversial. It doesn't make a big difference. In the places he could have vetoed the emergency clauses, such as in the repeal of the Parents' Bill of Rights for school students, He didn't veto that. And what that means is that if we want to reinstate a law that had the support of more than 400,000 people who signed a petition that the legislature adopted overwhelmingly last year and was now repealed this year. If the voters want their say in that, they can't have a referendum clause. They can't have a referendum. They need to do an initiative. The reason that that's significant is it takes twice as many signatures to get an initiative on the ballot as a referendum. And it is initiatives are more subject to legal challenges than referenda. So it makes it more difficult for the people to have their say. So in all three of those areas, restraining emergency powers, restraining taxes and budget, and limiting the use of needless and abusive emergency clauses. Unfortunately, Governor Ferguson failed in all of those areas. So the question is, what do we do from here, right? Do we sit back and drink and enjoy the summer? Well, the Washington Policy Center is focusing on how we can fight back. And the way to fight back against these bad ideas and out of control spending and out of control, frankly, power in Olympia is to build from the ground up. Local control is where the best things happen, the best solutions are found, and it is the most democratic and responsible way to make public policy, to empower the public rather than treat them as a nuisance. Too often in Olympia, what we see is that politicians lie to the public so that they can impose their agenda. They treat the public as an obstacle, not as a partner. In fact, we know that the best solutions come from people on the ground who know the issues and have the power to make the best decisions and are accountable for when policies go well and when policies go poorly. Again and again, however, what we've seen in Washington state is efforts to limit the power of the public, to override them, to silence them. That's what so many of the emergency clauses were about, which is limiting their power to have their say at the ballot box. And we've even seen more abusive cases, such as in Spokane, where a judge ruled that even though voters in the city overwhelmingly wanted to change homeless policy in the city, they could not. And when the city council was given an opportunity to stand up for the will of the people, what the people wanted, they didn't either. Again, state government and too many local governments, unfortunately, see the people as the enemy rather than as partners. Washington Policy Center thinks that's completely backwards. So what we're going to be doing is empowering people at the local level, changing policy at the local level, putting more power in the hands of individuals so that people can restrain property taxes, can choose how to educate their children, can be partners in being good stewards of the environment around them. That's how we rebuild Washington state. It is not time to give up. Washington is too important. It's too beautiful. It's our home. We need to fight for it. And fighting in Olympia is very hard, but where we need to start is the local level. That's what Washington Policy Center will be doing over the next few years. We hope that you will join us. There's a lot of opportunity. We have a lot of hope that we can make that change, and we hope that you will join us in making that hope a reality.
If you found this informative, share it with a friend and consider checking out one of our suggested videos over here. Make sure you're subscribed so that you can stay up to date with the latest policy news from Washington.